The night was strangely silent in Westfield. In the small house at the end of the road, Mary Thompson sat in the living room, her eyes fixed on the window. The wind made the trees sway outside, while she felt something dark growing inside her. Roger, her oldest son, passed through the house like a stranger. He carried a suitcase and avoided looking at her. Next to her, Duke, her German shepherd, watched the man intently, as if sensing the storm that was about to arrive. "Roger, are you going somewhere?" Mary finally asked, her voice trembling. He paused for a moment but didn't respond. He just kept walking toward the door. Duke let out a soft growl which made Mary swallow hard. She knew something was wrong. When Roger opened the door, the cold night air swept into the room, bringing with it an irreparable sense of emptiness. "Are you leaving me?" Mary's question came out more as a whisper, but it carried the weight of years of sacrifice and love. Roger sighed and turned around, but his expression was one of indifference. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. I can't stay here taking care of everything. I have my own life to live." Duke began barking, loud and insistent, as if trying to stop Roger from leaving. The sound echoed through the house, and Mary brought her hands to her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Are you going to abandon me, just like everyone else?" she screamed. But he didn't answer. He just left, leaving the door wide open behind him. The sound of the car's engine echoed in the darkness until it faded into a distant whisper. Alone with Duke, Mary broke down in a deep sob. The dog rested his head on her lap, his eyes fixed on hers. There was something in his gaze, a silent promise. Duke seemed determined, as if he understood that, now, he was all that remained to protect her from a world that had turned its back on her. Something in Duke's behavior would begin to change, and Mary would feel that his loyalty was more powerful than she could have ever imagined. If you're moved by the story of Mary and Duke, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. The night seemed endless. Roger's absence hung over the house like a heavy shadow, and Mary remained seated on the couch, with Duke by her side. The German shepherd was restless, pacing back and forth and sniffing every corner of the room, as if searching for something. The silence of the house, broken only by the dog's footsteps and the occasional sound of wind outside, made everything even more suffocating. Mary closed her eyes for a moment, trying to block out the pain, but she knew nothing would erase the feeling of being abandoned. Duke, however, seemed unable to settle. He suddenly stopped near the front door. His ears perked up and began emitting a low, contained growl. Mary lifted her eyes, startled. "What is it, Duke?" she asked, her voice weak. The dog didn't take his eyes off the door, as if sensing a presence on the other side. His expression was so intense that Mary felt a chill run down her spine. Slowly, she stood up and walked to the window to peek outside, but all she saw was the empty, dark road. "It must be just your imagination," Mary murmured, more to herself than to Duke. She tried to ignore the dog's strange behavior, but he wouldn't stop staring at the door. As if to reinforce her point, Duke let out a loud, sharp bark that echoed through the house. Mary stepped back, her heart racing. Something was wrong, but she didn't know what it was. Determined to distract herself, Mary went to the kitchen to make a cup of tea. But even there, Duke's presence was impossible to ignore. He followed her, staying close to her legs, his eyes fixed on something invisible. Every time she moved, he moved with her, as if he didn't want to leave her alone for even a second. She gently petted his head, but couldn't shake the unsettling thought. Did Duke know something she didn't? Hours passed, and the sun began to rise on the horizon, bringing a faint, shy light into the house. Mary, exhausted, finally fell asleep on the couch with Duke lying at her feet. But even while she slept, the dog remained alert, eyes wide open, ears straining to catch every sound coming from outside. When the clock struck 6 in the morning, Duke suddenly stood up, his legs stiff, and started tugging at the hem of Mary's dress with his mouth. "What is it now?" Mary asked, still groggy from sleep. Duke ran to the front door, barking as if something urgent was happening. When she opened the door, she was greeted by an unexpected sight. Something was lying on the ground in the yard, partially covered by the morning dew. Mary stepped hesitantly outside, her heart pounding. What she saw made her blood run cold. The object found in the backyard will not only raise new questions, but also begin to unravel something Mary never imagined about Roger's departure. The cold morning air surrounded Mary as she took her first steps out of the house. Duke ran around her, as if trying to lead her to something important. His barking had stopped, but he was growling quietly, his eyes fixed on the object lying on the grass. Mary hesitated for a moment, her bare feet sinking into the damp grass. What could be so urgent that it made Duke so agitated? With her heart racing, she slowly approached. The object, at first glance, seemed like a bag, but as she knelt down, Mary realized it wasn't an ordinary bag. It was the same suitcase Roger had taken the night before. It was open, with clothes scattered on the ground, partially covered in mud. There was something strange about it. Mary looked around, but the road was empty, with no sign of her son. She swallowed hard, feeling her heart tighten. "Duke, how did this end up here?" she murmured, as if the dog could answer. Duke approached the suitcase and sniffed it insistently, then looked at Mary with an expression that almost seemed human, a mix of alertness and concern. Mary's mind raced, trying to piece things together. Could Roger have changed his mind and come back? Or worse, could something have happened to him? With trembling hands, Mary began to examine the contents of the suitcase. There were dirty clothes, a pair of shoes, and a sealed envelope. Inside, she found a hastily written letter. She recognized Roger's handwriting, but the words were disconnected, as if he had been afraid when writing them. "Mom, I'm sorry. I couldn't tell you everything. I'm being followed. If something happens to me, take care of yourself and trust Duke. He knows more than he seems." Reading the letter left Mary breathless. Her son was afraid of something or someone, and now she was alone with only Duke for company. The German Shepherd remained alert, sniffing around the suitcase as if he could still sense Roger's presence there. Mary pressed the paper to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "What did you do, Roger? What's happening?" Before she could think of anything else, a distant sound cut through the silence. Footsteps on the road. Mary immediately stood up, her heart racing. Duke went into alert mode, the fur on his neck standing on end. Whoever was coming, it wasn't someone she had expected. The unexpected arrival of a figure on the road raised more questions than answers, forcing Mary to rely more and more on Duke's instincts to protect her. The figure on the road. Mary froze on the porch, her heart pounding in her chest. The figure on the road moved slowly, each step echoing in the morning silence. Duke growled softly, his fur standing up as he stayed beside Mary, like a protective shadow. As the person got closer, the faint light of dawn revealed a middle-aged man, wearing wrinkled clothes and a worn-out look. He had a tense expression, but his eyes seemed determined. "Are you Mary Thompson?" the man asked, his voice raspy, stopping a few feet away. He kept his hands visible, as if to show he wasn't a threat. Duke, however, didn't seem convinced and stepped forward, blocking the path between the man and Mary. "Who are you? What do you want?" Mary shot back, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. She held Roger's letter in one hand, while the other was ready to pull Duke back if he advanced. The man sighed and pulled a badge from his jacket pocket. "My name is Jack Henderson. I'm a private detective. I'm here because of your son." Jack's words hit Mary like a punch. She looked at him with a mix of relief and panic. "Roger, is he okay? Where is he?" Duke glanced at Mary, then back at Jack, as if trying to gauge the truth in the man. Jack hesitated before answering. "I don't know where he is right now, but he hired me a few weeks ago. He said he was in serious trouble, that he thought someone was following him. When I lost contact with him last night, I knew something was wrong. He left clues that led me here." Mary felt her legs tremble and leaned against the door. Duke stayed alert, but seemed to have relaxed slightly, as if he sensed that Jack wasn't an immediate threat. "He left clues?" Mary repeated, trying to understand. Jack nodded, pointing to the suitcase on the floor. "The suitcase and this letter. That was a signal. He knew you and Duke would be at the center of all this. The silence once again took over the environment for a moment, interrupted only by the sound of the wind. Mary felt that, once again, the world as she knew it was crumbling. Before she could ask another question, Jack looked directly at Duke, a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. "Your dog. He seems to know more than meets the eye." Maybe Roger was right about that. Jack's words left Mary suspicious, but the presence of the detective would soon reveal secrets about Roger and about Duke's unexpected role in this story. Mary felt the weight of Jack's words settle in her chest like a stone. She looked at Duke, who was now circling the suitcase, sniffing every inch with more attention than before. Jack cautiously approached, keeping his eyes fixed on the dog. He was right about Duke. There's something about this dog. He seems to know more than an ordinary dog should. That's absurd, Mary replied, trying to suppress the growing panic inside her. But as she spoke, she realized the truth in her own words. Since Roger's departure, Duke hadn't been the same. He was more alert, more restless, as if he knew something she didn't. Jack didn't seem surprised by her reluctance and opened his jacket, pulling out a small notebook. "Roger asked me to protect you and Duke if anything happened to him," Jack explained, flipping through a few pages. "He said he'd gotten into something dangerous but couldn't tell me everything. Just that he was sure you and Duke would be in danger after he was gone." He turned the notebook to show Mary. On the scribbled page it read, "Trust Duke. He will guide you." Mary was speechless. She stroked Duke's head, and he immediately looked up at her with his intelligent, meaningful eyes. "Guide? Guide to where? What did Roger mean by that?" Mary asked, nearly shouting, feeling the weight of the situation tightening around her throat. Before Jack could respond, Duke suddenly lifted his head and ran toward the backyard fence, barking frantically. Mary and Jack exchanged alert glances and followed the dog. On the other side of the fence, a black pickup truck was parked, partially hidden among the trees. The engine was off, but the dark windows made it look like someone was inside, watching. "Don't get any closer," Jack warned, stepping in front of Mary. He pulled a phone out of his pocket and began dialing, but Duke kept barking, as if saying there was no time to wait. Mary grabbed Jack's arm, her instincts telling her that the truck wasn't there by coincidence. "Who are they? Do you know who might be following us?" Jack just shook his head. "I don't know, but Roger made it clear that whoever they are, they're not the type to ask questions before acting. We need to leave now, Mary, and take Duke. He might be our only chance." The presence of the mysterious truck forces Mary to flee as she begins to realize that what's coming is much bigger than she imagined, and that Duke might be the key to unraveling the mystery. What's behind the truck? Does Duke really know something? Share your theory in the comments and with your friends. Mary looked at the truck parked in the distance, her heart pounding in her chest. Duke growled incessantly, his paws firmly planted in the ground as if he were ready to attack at any moment. Jack, still holding his phone, leaned in to whisper to Mary, "Go inside and grab what's essential. We can't stay here." "And you? What are you going to do?" Mary asked, trying to control the tremble running through her hands. Jack kept his eyes fixed on the truck, his body tense. "I'll make sure we have enough time, but you need to trust me. And Duke. He seems to know what's going on better than any of us." With no other choice, Mary ran into the house. Her hands still shook as she grabbed her purse, Roger's letter, and an old blanket for Duke. Her thoughts were a mess. How had her life come to this point? Just 24 hours ago, she was a mother trying to deal with her son's abandonment. Now she was being chased by strangers in a truck. Outside, Duke continued to pace back and forth, restless. As soon as Mary left the house, Jack guided her to his car, parked a little further down the road. Duke jumped into the vehicle without hesitation, as if he knew it was the only option. Jack looked around, his movements calculated and quick. "They're still there, but we don't know for how long. We're leaving now." Mary sat in the back seat with Duke, gripping the dog's fur, as if he were the only solid thing in her life at that moment. Jack started the engine and sped down the dirt road, the tires kicking up a cloud of dust. Mary looked back, seeing the black truck start to move. Her stomach churned. They were being followed. "They're behind us," Mary exclaimed, panic creeping into her voice. Jack didn't respond right away. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, skillfully navigating sharp turns while trying to put more distance between them. Duke, on the other hand, didn't seem scared. He was in an attack position, eyes fixed on the road behind them. Mary felt something strange, an inexplicable sense of confidence emanating from the dog, as if he knew exactly what to do. Jack's truck veered off the main road and onto a narrow path lined with tall trees. The sound of the truck's engine faded momentarily. Mary took a deep breath, but Jack interrupted her. "Don't relax yet. This isn't over. They know where you live, and they know we're together." Mary realized that running away wasn't enough. She would have to face the threat head-on, and Duke might be the only one who could guide her to the truth hidden by Roger. The silence in the car was almost as heavy as the tense air around them. Mary gazed out the window at the empty road, her thoughts swirling in her mind. Jack, with his hands firmly gripping the wheel, glanced at the rearview mirror every few seconds. Duke, on the other hand, was completely still, sitting beside Mary with his eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if waiting for something. The German Shepherd's behavior continued to unsettle her. It almost seemed human. "Where are we going?" Mary finally asked, her voice breaking the silence. Jack hesitated before answering, tightening his grip on the wheel. "There's a place a few miles from here. An old client of mine has a secluded property. It's safe. For now." "For now," Mary repeated, feeling the fear rise again. She looked at Duke, who was calmer now, but his eyes still had that unsettling intensity. Mary instinctively grabbed onto his fur, seeking comfort. "Jack, you need to tell me what's really going on. Why did Roger think Duke was so important?" Jack sighed, his eyes fixed on the road. "Roger got involved with something dangerous, Mary. He didn't want to, but he had no choice. He knew he was being followed by people who wanted something, and he thought Duke could protect him. And you. He believed the dog knew something we don't. And the more I see Duke, the more I'm starting to believe he was right." Mary felt the world spin around her. Duke? A dog? How could he know something they didn't? But before she could ask another question, Jack slowed down. The narrow road ended at a rusted gate leading to a cabin surrounded by trees. Jack turned off the engine and quickly got out of the car, scanning the surroundings. "Come on. We don't have much time." They entered the cabin, which was filled with old furniture and layers of dust. Jack locked the door behind them, while Mary stayed close to Duke, still holding Roger's letter tightly in her hands. Before she could ask what they would do next, Duke started barking again, running to the window and scratching the glass urgently. Jack looked outside and paled. "What's wrong?" Mary asked, already feeling panic creeping back in. Jack swallowed hard and replied, "They found us. The cabin's security is put to the test, and Mary, Jack, and Duke will have to make quick decisions to face the pursuers." But the real reason behind the chase begins to unfold. The cabin seemed to shrink around Mary as Jack moved frantically, checking every window and door. Duke, his gaze fixed outside, looked like a living statue, every muscle tensed and ready for action. The silence outside was more threatening than any sound they could hear. The black truck was now parked just a few meters from the gate, its lights off, but the threat it carried was impossible to ignore. "We don't have much time," Jack murmured, looking from Mary to Duke. He placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to convey calm, but the tremor in his voice was clear. "If they catch up to us, it will be the end. But Duke might be our advantage." Mary looked at Jack, confused and frightened. "What do you mean by that?" "He's just a dog, Jack. My son is missing, and now we're running without even knowing what or who we're running from." Jack stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath. "No, Mary. Duke isn't just a dog. Roger knew that, and I think you do too. Remember that letter? Trust Duke. Roger made that clear. There's something about this dog, and we need to figure it out before it's too late." Duke growled, interrupting the conversation. He ran to the door and barked insistently, as if warning of something imminent. Jack grabbed a gun from his backpack, an old, worn-out pistol, and positioned himself next to Mary. "Stay behind me and stay close to Duke. He seems to know what to do." The sound of footsteps crushing dry leaves echoed from outside, making Mary clutch her chest, where she held Roger's letter. "Who are these people? Why are they after us?" Her voice came out in a strained whisper, but before Jack could answer, the cabin door trembled from a violent impact. Someone was trying to get in. Duke began barking even louder, charging toward the door, but Jack held his leash. "Not yet," he said in a low voice, his eyes locked with Mary's. "We need to leave now. Grab what you need and follow me. Duke can create a distraction." Mary hesitated, but the intensity in Jack's eyes and Duke's fierce instinct convinced her. She grabbed her bag and followed Jack to a side door that led into the forest. The cold wind sliced through her skin, but she had no time to feel fear. Jack signaled for her to run while he stayed behind, ready to face whoever was coming. However, before they could get very far, a piercing sound of something breaking came from inside the cabin. Mary turned to look, but Jack pushed her forward. "Don't look back. Just run." Duke, now free, ran behind them, not to escape, but instead he charged toward the cabin, as if he instinctively knew he had to protect Mary at all costs. What Duke would face inside, and how he would guide Mary to uncover the truth, would be something that would change their lives forever. The forest felt like a living entity, cloaked in dense shadows and whispers of the wind that Mary couldn't tell if they were real or just her imagination. Dry leaves crunched under her feet, and the icy air burned her lungs as she ran alongside Jack. Duke stayed behind them, constantly glancing back, alert to the slightest movement. The sound of footsteps crushing leaves grew louder. The pursuers were getting closer. "We're almost there," Jack whispered through gritted teeth, pointing to a narrow path ahead. Mary fought against the fear swelling in her chest, but she couldn't keep dark thoughts at bay about what would happen if they were caught. Duke let out a low growl, a guttural sound that felt more instinctual than threatening. He paused for a moment, ears perked, and Mary could feel the tension rising. "Why did he stop?" she asked, trying to hold back the panic. Before Jack could answer, Duke barked loudly, a sound that echoed through the forest. He charged in the opposite direction, as if he were going to intercept the men following them. "Duke, no!" Mary shouted, trying to run after him, but Jack firmly grabbed her arm. "He knows what he's doing, Mary. We have to trust him," Jack said, his voice filled with urgency. Duke disappeared into the trees, and Mary felt as though something inside her had been torn away. "He's not just a dog, is he?" she asked, tears welling up in her eyes. Jack didn't respond immediately, but his silence said more than words ever could. As they continued along the trail, the sounds of the forest began to shift. There were now confused shouts and fierce barks in the distance, mixed with snapping branches and rapid movement. Mary could barely breathe, thinking of Duke facing those unknown men all alone. "He can't do this alone, Jack," she exclaimed, but Jack shook his head. "Duke isn't alone. He's more than you think." When they finally reached an open clearing, Jack stopped, pulling Mary behind a fallen log. He glanced back, where the sounds of conflict were beginning to fade. Mary, her heart in her throat, waited for any sign of Duke. And then, as if emerging from the silence, an unmistakable sound echoed. Duke's deep growl, drawing closer, accompanied by lighter footsteps. He was coming back, but he wasn't alone. What he brought with him would change everything forever. Mary held her breath as Duke emerged from the shadows of the forest. His paws were covered in mud, and small cuts marked his fur, but his eyes gleamed with a fierce intensity. He let out a low growl as he moved toward Mary and Jack, keeping his gaze fixed on something moving behind him. "What's going on?" Mary asked, her voice trembling as she tried to understand what Duke was trying to communicate. "He's not alone," Jack murmured, drawing his gun again and stepping in front of Mary. The tension in the air was palpable as a second figure appeared on the trail behind Duke. It was a young man, his face smeared with dirt and his wide eyes filled with fear. He raised his hands in surrender, his body trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Please, don't shoot," he pleaded, his voice weak. Duke stopped beside Mary, as if ensuring she was safe, but he didn't take his eyes off the man. "Who are you? Why are you following us?" Jack demanded, keeping the gun pointed. The man swallowed hard and looked at Mary. I knew Roger. He told me to find you," he said, each word heavy, as if it took great effort to speak. His words hit Mary like a blow. "My son? He's alive? Where is he?" she asked desperately, taking a step forward. Duke let out a low growl, as if urging caution, but Mary ignored the warning. The man lowered his head, avoiding her gaze. "I don't know where he is now. He told me to find you and make sure you knew the truth." Jack lowered his weapon slightly but kept his guard up. "What truth? Speak quickly before they find us." The man took a deep breath, looking directly at Mary. "Roger discovered something he wasn't supposed to. Something about the people hunting you. He knew he was in danger and that you'd be their next target. He said Duke was the only way to keep you safe." Mary felt her legs weaken. Everything seemed to spin as she tried to process the stranger's words. Before she could say anything, Duke moved, positioning himself next to the man and staring at Mary with an intense look, almost as if urging her to listen. "Roger trusted him with his life," the man continued. "And now you need to do the same if you want to survive what's coming." If you enjoyed this journey filled with tension, mystery, and twists, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on the next videos. See you on the next adventure.